In the previous segment, we saw that in the pre-modern world, credit was very limited. So people had difficulties in financing new businesses or expanding existing businesses. Because there were few new businesses, the economy didn't grow. And because the economy didn't grow, the trust in the future remained small, and people didn't want to extend much credit. And this is what froze the economy. Then came the scientific revolution and the idea of progress. The idea of progress is built on the notion that if we admit our ignorance and invest resources in research, things can actually improve. This idea was soon translated into economic terms. Whoever believes in progress believes that geographical discoveries, technological inventions, and organizational developments can increase the sum total of human production, human trade, and human wealth. If you really believe in progress, it means that you believe that the entire economic pie can grow. And then everybody can enjoy more food, more clothes, more wealth at the same time. The fact that I become richer is not at the expense of somebody else. Over the last 500 years, the idea of progress convinced people to put more and more trust in the future. And this trust created credit. And credit brought real economic growth, new businesses. And growth strengthened the trust in the future and opened the way for giving even more credit next time. Now, it didn't happen overnight, and there were many economic crises on the way, but over the long run, the general direction was unmistakable. Today, there is so much trust in the future, and there is so much credit in the world that governments, business corporations, and also private individuals can obtain quite easily large, long-term, and low-interest loans. You can get millions from the banks that you have to repay in 20 or 30 years for an interest of just 2% or 3% a year. It's nothing compared to what usually was demanded from people in history. The rising belief in progress and credit led also to dramatic ethical and political revolutions. In 1776, the Scottish economist Adam Smith published the book The Wealth of Nations, which is probably the most important economics book of all times. In his book, Adam Smith made the following revolutionary argument. Smith said that when the owner of a factory or the shoemaker has greater profits than what he needs in order to maintain his own family, he will tend to use his profits in order to employ more and more assistants in order to further increase his profits, in order to make more money. And the more profits the owner, the shoemaker or the owner of the factory have, the more assistants, the more employees that he can employ. It follows from this that an increase in the profits of private entrepreneurs is the basis for the increase in collective wealth and prosperity. When I become richer, I can employ more people, and therefore these people also have more money. Now, this may not strike you as a very original idea, because we all live in a capitalist world that takes the arguments of Adam Smith for granted. We hear variations on this idea every day in the news. However, Adam Smith's claim that the selfish human urge to increase my private profits is the basis for the collective wealth and welfare of society has been one of the most revolutionary ideas in human history. Revolutionary not just from an economic perspective, but even more so from a moral and political perspective. What Adam Smith is saying is, in fact, that greed is good, and that by becoming richer, you benefit everybody, not just yourself. What Smith is saying actually is that egoism is altruism. That when you're being egoist and pursuing your own wish to make more and more money, you're actually being altruistic and you help all the people around you. Smith taught people to think about the economy not as a zero-sum game, that if I become rich, it can happen only because you become poor. Rather, you should think about the economy as a win-win situation in which my profits are also your profits. If I'm poor, you too will probably be poor because I cannot buy any of your products or services because I'm poor, I don't have money. But if I'm rich, that's good to you, because you will also now can become richer because I can now buy something that you sell, like your products or your services. Smith thus denied the traditional contradiction between wealth and morality. If Jesus said that a rich man cannot enter the kingdom of God, Smith said that the rich men are the best people in society. They are the one creating the kingdom of God here on earth and benefiting everybody. Being rich, according to capitalism, according to Adam Smith, being rich means being a good person. In the story of Adam Smith, people become rich not by robbing their neighbors, but by increasing the overall size of the pie. They open new bakeries and new factories and so forth. And when the pie grows, everyone benefits. The rich are accordingly the most useful and most benevolent people in society because they are the ones who turn the wheels of growth for the advantage of everybody else. However, this works only if the rich actually use their profits to open new factories and to hire new employees and not wasting them on all kinds of non-productive activities. Consequently, a very crucial part of the modern capitalist economy was the emergence of a new ethical code, a code of how people should behave. And according to this code, profits must be reinvested in production. They shouldn't be wasted. According to capitalism, production brings profits, and profits then must be reinvested in production, which will bring you more money, and this money you must also reinvest it back in increasing production further to have more money, and so on and so forth ad infinitum. Investments, how to invest your money, it can be done in many ways. You can open a new factory. You can enlarge an existing factory. You can conduct scientific research, which will lead to new products. You can explore new markets. But all these investments must somehow increase production and translate into larger profits in the future. In the new religion of capitalism, the first and most sacred commandment is the profits of production must always be reinvested in increasing production. And this is why capitalism is called capitalism. Capitalism distinguishes between capital and just wealth. Wealth is all kinds of things. Capital means money and goods and resources that are invested in production. Wealth, on the other hand, is something that is wasted on unproductive activities or just buried in the ground. A pharaoh in ancient Egypt who pours resources into building a pyramid that is not productive, it doesn't produce anything, he is not a capitalist. Pharaohs in ancient Egypt were not capitalists. They were very wealthy people, but not capitalists. Similarly, a pirate who say loots a treasure, a chest full of gold coins, and then takes this chest full of gold coins and buries it on the beach of some island in the Caribbean, he is very wealthy, but he is not a capitalist because he didn't invest his money in anything productive. On the other hand, a hard-working factory hand who takes some of his monthly salary and invests it in the stock market, he is a capitalist. He treats his money as capital that is reinvested in production. He's not a big capitalist because he has only little money, but he is still thinking along capitalist lines. This idea that the profits of production must be reinvested in increasing production may again sound quite trivial to you, because this is how our world functions. But in fact, it was a very strange and alien idea to most people throughout history. In pre-modern times, people believed that production was more or less constant. So there was no reason to reinvest your profits in production if production cannot increase no matter what you do. This is why the elite in the Middle Ages, the nobility in the Middle Ages, they did not believe in the capitalist ethic of investment. They believed in an ethic of generosity and conspicuous consumption. They had money, so they spent it on tournaments, on banquets, on palaces, on wars, on charity, on building churches, all kinds of things that don't improve production. Very few noblemen in medieval Europe tried to reinvest their profits in increasing the productivity of their estates, say by developing better kinds of wheat or by looking for new markets. In the modern era, what happened is that the nobility was gradually replaced by a new elite whose members are true believers in the religion of capitalism. The new capitalist elite is made up not of dukes and kings and queens and princes, but the new capitalist elite is composed of managers, stock traders, industrialists, and people of the middle class. These people are far more rich than the medieval nobility, but they are far less interested in extravagant consumption, and they spend a much smaller part of their income on non-productive activities. Medieval, you just need to look at them to realize the difference. Medieval noblemen wore very colorful robes of gold and silver and silk and fur and so forth, and they devoted much of their time to all kinds of banquets and carnivals and tournaments and so forth. In comparison, the elite of our days, they wear dreary uniforms, which we call suits, which are very dull. They look like a bunch of crows, the elite of today, in all the suits of black and gray. And they have very little time for carnivals and banquets. Most rich people today, all the millionaires and multimillionaires, what they spend their days doing is rushing from one business meeting to another business meeting, trying to figure out where is the best place to invest their capital and trying to find out what happened to the previous investments. It's not just multimillionaires who invest their income in the hope of increasing productivity. Ordinary people and governments also think along very similar lines. For instance, in many quite modest neighborhoods, people spend a lot of their dinner talk discussing where to invest money. I've been in so many such discussions over the last few years with friends. They can spend hours just discussing where to invest money, somebody says, let's put it in the stock exchange. And somebody says, no, the stock exchange is not good. It's better to buy a flat and rent it out. This is a much better investment. And then somebody else says, no, I know somebody who has a startup on the internet. It's better to invest your money in supporting this startup, which may make millions. And then you spend hours discussing where is the best place to invest your money. So even if you don't have much money, but you spend time thinking where to put my money, in a flat, in real estate, in a stock exchange, in a startup, then you're thinking along capitalist lines. This is something that the medieval nobility rarely did, to argue and discuss where to invest their money. Governments too, all the time, try to find where to invest their tax revenues in the best way. How to invest their tax revenues in productive enterprises that will increase the future income of the government. For example, one government may decide to invest in infrastructure. They build a new port in order to make it easier for factories in this country to export their products. And they hope, the government, that they would be able to tax these factories and get more money, which they then will be able to invest even further in infrastructure. Another government thinks that education is a better investment than infrastructure. So that government spends a lot of money, invests a lot of money in giving citizens very good education based on the assumption that educated citizens will develop all kinds of high-tech industries which pay lots of taxes without needing extensive infrastructure like ports. Today, capitalism is no longer just a way to manage the economy and to invest money. It has turned into an actual religion. It now includes a set of teaching about how people should behave, educate their children, and even think. The principal maxim of the capitalist religion is that economic growth is the supreme good, because everything in the world depends on economic growth. Even if you want justice or freedom or happiness, you can have them only if there is economic growth. Ask a capitalist how to bring justice or political freedom to a place like Zimbabwe or Afghanistan. You are likely to get a lecture on how economic growth and a thriving middle class are essential for having stable democratic institutions, and about the need to educate Afghan tribesmen to appreciate the capitalist values of free enterprise, hard work, and self-reliance. This new capitalist religion has had a decisive influence on the development of modern science. Scientific research, as we saw, is usually funded by other governments or private businesses. When capitalist governments and businesses considered whether to invest money in a particular scientific project, the first question they usually ask is whether this project will enable us to increase production and increase profits. Will this scientific project encourage economic growth or not? A project that does not contribute anything to economic growth has very little chance of finding a sponsor in the world of today. Any history of modern science that therefore leaves capitalism out of the picture is not worth much. You won't understand the history of science if you don't take capitalism into account. Conversely, the history of capitalism is unintelligible. You cannot understand it unless you take science into account. Because capitalism is founded on a belief in perpetual economic growth, that the pie will get bigger and bigger and bigger. This belief flies in the face of almost everything we know about the universe. A society of wolves would be extremely foolish to believe that the supply of sheep would keep on growing and growing indefinitely. The human economy in the last 500 years nevertheless managed to really grow without limits exponentially, thanks only to the fact that scientists come up with new discoveries and new gadgets every few years. Discoveries such as the discovery of the continent of America, of the internal combustion engine, and of genetically engineered sheep. Banks and governments print the money, but ultimately it is the scientists who have to foot the bill. Over the last few years, since 2008 and the beginning of the last economic crisis, governments and banks all over the world have been printing money like mad. Well, they haven't actually printed money, as we explained earlier. They just go to the computer, and in a file which says $1 trillion, they delete the 1 and says and write instead 3, and just like that, 2 new $1 trillion appear and can start circulating in the economy. So over the last few years, governments and banks have been creating terrific amounts of more money and more credit. Why? Because everybody is terrified that the economic crisis that began in 2008 will stop the growth of the economy and will cause the collapse of the entire system. Because if the system doesn't grow, it collapses. It doesn't stand still. This is why trillions of new dollars and euros and yens have been created to give more credit and boost economic growth. What allows the governments and the banks to create all this new money? Well, one thing that allows it is our trust in these governments and banks. But this trust is eroding. There is a limit to how many new dollars the US government can just create out of thin air without eroding the trust of people not only in the United States but all over the world. Ultimately, what really gives cover to all this new money created from nothing is our trust in science. The only thing that can cover these trillions of dollars and save the economy from collapse is new scientific discoveries. Everybody hopes that all the researchers that are being financed by all this new money in fields like biotechnology and nanotechnology and so forth would lead to new technological inventions which will create new businesses and new products. And the profits from all these new businesses and products, this is what will cover the trillions of dollars that governments and banks have been created from thin air over the last 5 years. If that doesn't happen, we are facing collapse. Because as we explained earlier, most of the money today in the world, more than 90% of it, doesn't exist anywhere. It is just based on our hopes for the future. So if these hopes are not realized, it doesn't mean that we stay with what we have now. It means that more than 90% of the money we think we have now will just disappear. All the money in the bank accounts and in the pension funds and in the insurances and so forth, if there is no growth, it won't stay there. It will simply disappear. And this will cause the collapse of the entire system. This is why capitalism has such close links with science. But capitalism have equally strong links with the European empires. The next segment will be dedicated to exploring the complex relationship between capitalism and the empires.